OmniCenter has two major sources of alarms. There's performance data alarms, and these are things like, time series data like CPU utilization or bandwidth that are collected from the devices on a schedule, and they will generate alarms based on either thresholds or anomalies. And we define anomalies as deviations from prior behavior. So you can turn on anomaly detection, and what it's going to do is build a baseline of that statistic over the last time period, depending on whether you set it for weeks or days or hours. If you set it for weeks, it's basically going to look at this time of day on this day of the week for the last 8 weeks and build a baseline of what that value looks like over that time period, and then determine whether or not the current value makes sense, whether it's in a reasonable range. And you can define anomalies at a few different levels. We'll talk about that more in a second. But all of our performance data can either be based on a static threshold or an anomaly, and only critical thresholds will generate alarms. So warning thresholds will appear in the user interface but do not generate alarms, notifications, or actions, whereas critical ones do. Service checks, on the other hand, are really kind of binary checks that we run on the device to see, for example, is a process running? Is this server responding to a web get? Is it responding to DNS? Is the clock synced with NTP? All of these different things are service checks because it's really kind of yes or no answers. Service checks can come back okay, warning, or critical, and they are automatically dependent on the status of the host. So if we detect, for example, that this particular server stopped serving up a web page, the first thing we're going to do is see if the server itself is down. And if we can't ping that server, you're not going to get an alert for the web page being down. You're going to get an alert that the server is unreachable. So they're automatically dependent on host status, and any service checks on a host that's down will be automatically suppressed. So it'll limit the number of alarms that you get. Now, service checks, because the services themselves can be in a number of different states, they will generate alarms based on warning or critical state. So if a service goes into a warning state, like a web check might go into a warning state if it started getting back a 403 unauthorized message, that might return a warning state because it means the server is up, but something just went weird, and we'll send it a notification based on that.